Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. How are you? Get a little bit of a late start today as we welcomed the Greeks and the Prime Minister of Greece to the White House earlier today, where Secretary Tillerson was and joined in on some of those meetings. I'd like to start today talking a little bit about our Deputy Secretary's travel to Tokyo, Japan. Deputy Secretary John Sullivan held some bilateral meetings in Tokyo today with his counterpart, the Japanese Vice Foreign Minister, as well as the National Security Advisor. In both of those meetings, the Deputy Secretary and his Japanese counterparts underscored the importance of close cooperation to place maximum diplomatic, economic, and military pressure on the DPRK to abandon its nuclear and missile development. The deputy also reiterated the importance of trilateral cooperation with Japan and the Republic of Korea to address the DPRK's threat and range of other pressing regional and global issues. The deputy enjoyed the chance to meet in person with American and local mission staff at a town hall meeting at our U.S. Embassy in Tokyo to convey the department's appreciation for their vital contributions in advancing U.S. interests in Japan. I know they've been very hard at work in preparing for this trip, as well as the president's trip next month. In addition, the deputy engaged business leaders and representatives of the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan to discuss concrete ways to advance U.S.-Japan economic ties. The deputy's meetings today will be followed by trilateral meetings with the ROK and Japanese counterparts in Seoul tomorrow to further enhance coordination in addressing the critical DPRK threat and other issues of mutual interest.
So yesterday, in response to North Korea saying that they want to be able to have the security of having an ICBM that can reach mainland U.S., the State
That's
Department...
security?
Yeah. The State Department put out something of a response to that, saying that the Secretary calls on North Korea to show that it's serious about wanting to have talks, and a way of starting that would be to stop missile and nuclear tests. So at what point, I mean, what do you guys consider being serious about talks then? I mean, what are the benchmarks? Would it be just not having a test for a given period of time? How does the world know when North Korea is ready for talks?
I feel like we're a little bit flashback to 2 or 3 months ago, where that was a big topic of conversation. What would they have to do? It is very clear and apparent to the whole of the U.S. government that North Korea is not interested in sitting down for any kind of talks right now. That would certainly be our preference. Diplomacy is our preferred approach. We're not giving up on that. Secretary Tillerson has been clear about that, as has Secretary Mattis and many others throughout the national security team. We want North Korea to understand that it can choose a different path. It can choose a different path. It's up to North Korea to change its course of action if they want to return to credible negotiations. They are not showing that they're anywhere near desiring to have talks at this point with testing ballistic missiles, with doing advanced nuclear tests. They are not showing any kind of indication that they are interested in or willing in talking.
Right, but you guys brought it up and said that a start towards that end would be to not have tests. So,
well, certainly that would certainly be a start. It would be a nice start if they would stop doing these illegal nuclear and ballistic missile tests. That would be a great start. We would certainly like to see that happen, but we haven't really seen that take place yet.
So why is that the response then? It seems like, that was the response to what they had said, but you say that they're nowhere near that point. So why put it out there? Like, I'm confused as to when the U.S. is going to say, okay, this is a serious move. Like, what would a serious move toward talks
I
be?
think we continue to watch. We continue to monitor the situation. We know that North Korea is feeling the squeeze of not only sanctions, but our overall peaceful pressure campaign. We've had some very welcome news earlier this week, with just yesterday when the EU decided that it would ban some activities and some actions that would take place with North Korea. Last week we highlighted what the government of Italy did in its decision to kick out the North Korean ambassador. We've seen lots of news reports about the overall pressure campaign working. So we know that that is starting to choke off the money supply of North Korea. That money supply they use to fund their programs. They use to threaten and undermine international peace and security with that money too. Okay. Okay. And anything else on North Korea? Okay. Hi, Jen.
Thank you, Heather. United States has said that it will resolve the North Korean nuclear issues diplomatically. Is it diplomatic pressure or diplomatic negotiations? Or what is it, like both of them or negotiations?
Well, I think it's diplomatic pressure, as we've seen with our pressure campaign. We have our Deputy Secretary, John Sullivan, in the region now holding trilateral meetings tomorrow with the Republic of Korea and also Japan. That's an important step. It's an important way to further cement our strong relationship with our allies and also highlight to the world the effects of the pressure campaign and starting to choke the money off that is going into North Korea. Susan Thornton, our acting assistant secretary for East Asia Pacific, she's in the region now. She's not there. I believe she's actually in Manila. But one of the things that she's talking about is our pressure campaign as well. So we've got, sort of this whole of government approach where a lot of different individuals and different departments and agencies are focused on this, doing what they can to try to push for the eventual denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That's our goal. You've seen that on the part of Treasury, where the Secretary Steve Mnuchin has implemented various sanctions against North Korea. We see Ambassador Nikki Haley talking about that as well. She just gave a speech where she talked about 90% of the trade or exports have stopped going out of North Korea. So we see this as being successful. We hope that this diplomatic approach will be successful in the end. And just to go back to something that Secretary Tillerson said again, not too long ago, he's got to be the most optimistic guy in the U.S. government.
When diplomatic options failed, is military options always possible?
We have those kinds of options available for pretty much every eventuality around the world. So we're always going to do that. And we continue to stress to our allies, especially those in the region who are perhaps most nervous about North Korea, Japan and the Republic of Korea, we've got your backs. We've got your backs. We will support you and defend you. U.S. citizens over there, of course, same thing. We have a lot of U.S. forces who are serving over there. We always have that option, but what we talk about here from this room in this building is diplomacy, and we're remaining focused on that. And we're going to have to leave it at that, guys. Yeah. Okay, got it. One last. You get one last thing, Saeed, and then we got to go.
And this just happened.
Yeah.
The Israeli mini cabinet just announced that they will not hold any talks with the Palestinians until Hamas recognizes Israel. And since any talk would happen under your auspices, what is your view on this?
Okay. I have not seen that report, so I'm hesitant to comment on it without having read through it or the information myself. But I do have something I want to tell you about in the region, if you got a sec to spare.
I have all the time in the world.
Okay. So one of the things that we have talked about quite a bit is about bringing clean water to the West Bank and also to Gaza. We've talked about it for purposes of people's daily use, but also for agricultural reasons. Something that went sort of unnoticed over the weekend is a step that this administration took in trying to improve the daily lives of Palestinian people and what we believe could potentially enhance the prospects for a long-lasting peace. And that is the U.S. government, through USAID, announced a $10 million investment over the weekend to increase Palestinian access to that agricultural water. It was an expansion of what was called the Jericho wastewater collection system. It provides water to about 10,000 additional residents. So that may not seem like a lot to folks back here, but over there, significant, right?
Very significant.
Okay, very significant, Saeed said. All right, Saeed. So let me just mention who was there for that. Presiding over that launch was our U.S. Consul General Donald Blome and also Jason Greenblatt, who's the President's Special Representative for International Negotiations. One of these days, I look forward to bringing him over here so you can meet him.
The President answered yesterday a question about whether or not he believes that Cuba is responsible for the attacks on U.S. personnel in the affirmative, and he said, it's a very unusual attack, as you know, but I do believe Cuba is responsible, yes. That runs counter to what you've told us so far, that the investigation is ongoing and that while you hold Cuba responsible for the safety of these diplomats, you don't hold them responsible for the attacks. Does the President know something?
We've been clear in saying that an investigation is ongoing. I think what the President was saying and also what his Chief of Staff General Kelly was saying last week is the same thing that we have been saying, in that Cuba is responsible for protecting our U.S. Embassy personnel, our diplomats who are serving down there under the Vienna Conventions. That has been very clear all along. They have that responsibility. That is what they are supposed to do. They have not ensured the protection and the safety and security of our personnel down there, and that position hasn't changed. That's where we stand.
But with all due respect, that's
Yeah.
not what the president
Well,
said.
that's what the intent was. We've not changed our view on that. The administration has not changed its view on that. The investigation remains ongoing, but we've also been clear about this. And at the State Department, we tend to be, super cautious about some of the things we say. But to anyone who knows anything about the Cuban government and the past of the Cuban government, it's hard to imagine that certain things wouldn't be known that were taking place on that island right there. Okay.
But the president, that the president's comments caused some confusion. I mean, otherwise, why did the department feel it necessary to send a cable to all the embassies and consulates around the world titled clarifying the Cuban stance after the comments were made?
We
and in
always-
which that cable says specifically that we have not assigned.
We always do send out cables that that explain any kind of changes in U.S. policy, and my understanding that cable was anticipated. That was something that we had
Just
planned.
coincidence that
No,
it
no, no.
came
That
out.
is something that we had planned for and working on a cable that would go out across the world to alert people to some of the health concerns and areas and symptoms that people were experiencing. Okay, guys, we got to leave it there.
Well, hold
Thank
on.
you.
But that last
Yes.
thing that you said, though, and it's something that you said last Thursday for the first time, that, it's a small island and there's no way
Yeah.
that the regime would know. Are you now at least implicating that, they're complicit somehow?
I am
in
not.
these
I am not
things?
saying that. An investigation is underway, but I will just highlight that people who know about the background of the Cuban government, it would be hard to imagine that folks wouldn't know exactly what would be going on within
That
its own
sounds
borders.
like
Okay?
you're saying,
Yeah.
someone in Cuba, in the Cuban government.
Guys, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, thank you. Good to see you all.